Hello, everybody. Ron Lake here, your mind coach. Now, I help first responders, military, medical personnel break free from their personal nightmares brought about during active service without years of therapy and those mind numbing drugs. And today we're going to talk about mind monsters. Those are those annoying, negative thoughts that we have every day running through our mind, especially when we want to try to do something or accomplish something. Those thoughts about I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not qualified, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I am, or I am not, or I am not. Now, these thoughts are so annoying because they can actually keep us from accomplishing the things that we want to accomplish in our life. They keep us from reaching our goals. They can create depression, anxiety, stress in our lives. And there is absolutely something you can do about it. Now, there's a little science behind what I'm talking about today. We're not going to go into all the details because honestly, science has been studying the mind for so many years, and there's still so many things they just don't know about it. One of the things that they do know is that a thought is an actual electrical impulse in the brain, and the brain creates what's called synapses and or synapses. And these synapses are traveling points for thoughts and ideas, and they can move from one part of the brain to the other. Now, the thing about thoughts is if you have a fleeting thought about, you know, I'm not good enough, for instance, this thought is just a fleeting thought and it goes on. But when that thought continues over and over and over again, it begins to create this neural pathway. And I look at the neural pathway as sort of looking at a field. And the first time you have the thought, it's like footsteps in the grass. And then the thought continues on, and all of a sudden, it's like ruts from a wagon. And then soon it's a dirt road, and soon it's a two-way street. And you keep having this thought over and over and over again, it just becomes a super highway. And the beauty of this, though, is that once you get rid of that thought, everything reverses. That superhighway goes all the way back to just footsteps in the grass. Now, that pathway never goes away, but it gets so thinned out and so, um, oh, let's say, just sort of goes away. So, um, today we're going to learn how to get rid of those negative thoughts. But first, let's understand how negative thoughts impact you on a daily basis. Again, we talked about how they keep you from doing things, but the mind is so powerful that thoughts can actually have a physical impact on the body. It has a physiological response. And when you have physiological responses, these tend to make you act a certain way. So if you think that you're not good enough for something and you continue that thinking, you will never be able to be motivated or take the actions steps that you need to take to accomplish your goal because you're not good enough. So just a little quick story here. When I was a child, I got the opportunity to stay with my grandmother. Now, my grandmother's Italian and her name was Latifi. And while staying with her, I was with her for a whole week, and she was in her late 60s and maybe early 70s. And God, that was old to a 9-year old. But my grandmother would get up and take her shower. And in the bathroom after her shower, I would hear her say things like, Latifi, you're so beautiful. I love you. And she would kiss herself. And she would look in the mirror and look right at herself and talk about how beautiful she is and what a great person she was and how everybody loved her and how much she loved her. And as if she was talking to another person in the mirror. And she would do this routine every single morning. So I asked her one day, I said, Grandma, why do you do that? Why are you talking to yourself in the mirror? And she flat looked at me and said, if I don't love myself, then nobody else will love me. Well, that was a really powerful statement because I never thought about it as a child. But her thinking made her lovable. It made her popular. We would go to the grocery store, and young men in their 30s would, I say young now because of my age, but at the time they were older guys. But these guys in their 30s would be so flirty with her and friendly with her. We would go to the mall, and people were always attracted to her and wanting to talk to her, both men and women. But the guys always seemed to be wanting to pick up on her. So this was a reinforcement for me about self-talk and about self-thoughts, thoughts about yourself. So I decided to look into it more as an adult, especially when it comes to my practice helping people. And I realized that when you think positive, and I don't mean putting your head in the sand during, you know, um, distressing circumstances, but there's the phrase that if something bad will could happen, it will. And I learned to turn that around to if something good could happen, it will. And I'll tell you what, it actually changed my outlook in my life completely, because I was always looking for the positive in any situation. And when I did that, I started seeing those positives in any situation. What's the lesson I can learn from this particular event? So let me give you a short little exercise on uh, thoughts and how powerful they are and how they give you a physiological response. So go ahead and place your feet on the floor, your hands in your lap or just on the desk, and just relax for a moment. I'd like you to take a nice deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Just and hold it at the top for a moment and just let it out. Now, with your eyes closed, I'd like you to visualize, picture, pretend, or imagine a bright, yellow, juicy lemon. And see that lemon on a cutting board on the counter, and there's a knife there. Now reach up and touch the lemon and feel the texture. Notice the little bumps on it. And pick up your knife, and I want you to slice into that lemon and watch one half of the lemon fall to the side while you hold the other half. Maybe a seed falls out, some juice runs onto the cutting board, and you can now smell the aroma of that lemon. Go ahead and pick the lemon up and smell it. Just take in that aroma, nice and deep. It smells really good. Now I'd like you to visualize, picture, pretend, or imagine that you open your mouth and you squeeze that half of the lemon, allowing the juice to run down into your mouth, onto your tongue. It's cold, it's wet, and it's so sour. Just the most sour, sour, sour you can taste. And you close your mouth and you swish it all around and you feel that sour on all parts of your tongue. And then you swallow. Now, open your eyes. Most of you, if not all of you watching this video, experienced your mouth watering from the sourness of that lemon. Well, that was just a thought. That was just an image in your mind that created a physiological response in your body. So imagine you're going through your day every day and you have certain thoughts. You don't pay much attention to them, or they become very annoying to you and you pay attention to them all the time. But these thoughts that you have over and over again can actually create a physiological response in the body. Have you ever stressed out about something that may occur or may not occur, and you notice that your heartbeat increases? You get nervous. You might shake a little bit. Some people sweat. And this is all occurring just from your thoughts. The event that you're worried about hasn't even occurred yet. So, in understanding how these thoughts have a physiological response on your body, you can now see how that when you have a response like that, that you actually go about your day responding to these thoughts and creating the life around you based on just what you're thinking. So, if you have negative thoughts about not being good enough, then you will physically respond to your world around you like you're not good enough, and that projects out to other people, and they also will believe that you're not good enough. So you have the opportunity to change your mind. I'm sure every one of you have heard the phrase change your thinking and change your life. These phrases are great, but if you don't have an understanding as to what that actually means, then it's just another phrase on the internet or another phrase on your phone, or it's just another, you know, affirmation, so to speak. And it's not enough to just read these things, and it's more that you have to understand how and why they work. So I'm going to give you a exercise that I use with all of my clients, and it's been extremely successful over many, many years. I used it myself, and it's been very helpful because the idea behind this exercise is about getting those thoughts out of our head. So I'm going to encourage you to find a blank page book. It can have lines or not, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to encourage you to find one that has a latch on it or a lock on it, and we'll get to the reason for that a little bit later. But this book is going to become basically a vault for your negative thoughts. And what we're going to do is every time you have a negative thought, we're going to number it and we're going to write it down in the book and we're going to number it. Now, what's the philosophy behind this? Well, if thoughts are electrical impulses, that means they're things. You can take those thoughts and write them in this book and trap them in the book. That way, they're no longer in your mind. So let's say you have the thought, I'm not good enough. That's an electrical impulse. We're going to move that electrical impulse down our central nervous system, out through our arm, down into our wrists, all the way to our fingertips to a pen. And we're going to write that thought down in the book. And we're going to number it, number one. Now, the other thing we're going to do right after that is we're going to look at it and tell it out loud with our own voice, I don't want you in my head anymore. You're forever trapped in this book. And then you're going to slam that book shut. That's a lot of work, it seems like, but it only takes moments. Why are we doing all of this? Okay, so we already talked about moving the thought electronically down through our central nervous system, out our hand, onto the pen, through the pen, and onto the paper. So we've done something physical. Then we have out loud verbally acknowledged that that thought is real and that it is now trapped in this book. We visually see it on the page, so it no longer has to be in our head. And we hear ourself saying, you are trapped in this book and you are no longer welcome in my mind. That's how this thing works. So over time, every time you have one of those thoughts, you just write it in the book and write it in the book and write it in the book. Now, obviously, you need the book to be a little bit smaller so that you can keep it with you, maybe small enough to fit in your pocket or your purse or your glove box. And the lock is really important because number one, you do not want anybody to see this book because you could put thoughts in there that are just horrible, nasty, awful thoughts. And I'm not talking about a journal here. I'm talking about one line, just the thought. So if you write all these down and then somebody else reads it, then now they have those thoughts in their mind. That energy leaps off the page and enters their mind. And then they have thoughts about you and they have thoughts about themselves, and it just creates a whole big mess. So do not allow anybody to read this book. Now, a client the other day, while I was coaching them talking about the book, said these words, man, I really hate this book. And I said, why do you hate the book so much? Because every time I open it up and I read one of those thoughts, and I was like, oh, goodness, don't do that. Do not reread the thought because then you take it back off the page and put it back into your mind. So, guys, this is a simple exercise. It will take all of those thoughts out of your mind over a period of time. And what happens is sometimes when we remove those thoughts, they're very, very, I give them like a personality. They're very stubborn and they want to get back into you and they want to keep you from doing what it is that you want in your life. So as you're going along and these thoughts are no longer coming up, somebody outside of you might say, you know what, you're not good enough to do that, or you're not qualified, or You don't have enough education. You can't do this. I want you to immediately grab your book, open it up, find the number of that thought, put a check mark next to it, and remind that thought that you are no longer welcome in my mind. Slam the book closed and put it away. And you'll find that over time, these thoughts will not come up anymore. Now, there's a second part to this that is very, very important. If you remove something, you leave a space. So, what you're to do is after you lock that thought, trap it in that book, the next thing you want to do is you want to come up with or think of two positive thoughts that are exactly opposite of the thought that you trapped in the book. Now, what this does is you take the first thought that's exactly opposite, I'm not good enough, and say, I am absolutely good enough. And you repeat that in your mind a couple of times. And that begins to fill the space of the thought that you just took out. And you pick a second thought to reinforce that. I am good enough, and I have all the qualifications, experience, education, whatever you want to say, that proves that I am good enough. And that reinforces the first thought. So you've taken out one negative thought and then replaced it with two negative thoughts. And then you think about those, and you think of, excuse me, you take out one negative thought and you replace it with two positive thoughts. And then you end up thinking about those positive thoughts over and over again. And they completely eliminate and help keep away those negative thoughts about yourself. So if you're not feeling lovable, think about all the times that you have been lovable and write that I'm not lovable statement in the book, get it out of your mind, and repeat to yourself just a few times that you are lovable. And remember all the times that you were lovable and you were told you were lovable. Family, friends, coworkers, it doesn't matter. And this will help you get rid of all of those mind monsters. So I hope this exercise was useful to you. If it is, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel if you want to learn more, and please share because there's a lot of people out there that could use this information that could get rid of their mind monsters as well. So thank you for watching and have an amazing day.